Hi, this is John Farrell with the Farrell Law Firm, and today we're going to be talking about whether ChatGPT can write a last will and testament for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We put out new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and make sure you hit the like button on the video. It always helps. All right, this is John Farrell with the Farrell Law Firm, and to tell you a little bit about myself, I am the author of Estate Planning for the Modern Family, and I've also been voted recently one of the top 3 lawyers here in Cobb County, Georgia, along with the law firm being voted one of the top 3 law firms in Cobb County, Georgia. Well, today we're going to be talking about whether ChatGPT can write a last will and testament for you. And the reason this has come up recently is because I had a person come into the office wanting a last will and testament, and that's what we do. We draft those for our clients along with trusts and powers of attorney and advance directives and other things of that nature, but he wanted a last will and testament, and he specifically said, though, that he did not want any portion of the last will and testament to be drafted by ChatGPT. Now, you may not be familiar with ChatGPT, but it is an artificial intelligence program that is designed to provide answers and provide simply a chat-like feature. So you can ask it questions and it can respond in almost a human-like way. And so I thought it was very interesting that he would mention it. So I thought, well, can ChatGPT even write a last will and testament, much less help write a last will and testament? So I went to the program and I asked it a very basic legal question. The very basic legal question was, are handwritten wills valid in Georgia? Now, I will put the answer that ChatGPT gave me in the comments below in the description, so make sure you check it out. But I've got to tell you, I was very impressed with its answer. And let's talk a little bit about what it said. So the first thing that I found very interesting about ChatGPT's response was that it essentially said, listen, I'm not a lawyer, and if you need legal advice, you should consult with a lawyer. By the way, LegalZoom says something very similar, but that's beside the fact. But anyway, I thought that was very interesting because the first disclaimer is, hey, I can't give you legal advice, but if you need legal advice, go see a lawyer. And so ChatGPT, in response to the question, went through and described handwritten wills and holographic wills, and I got to tell you, it was so close to getting the answer right. In fact, I was impressed because this is an answer that many lawyers get wrong. But part of the response that ChatGPT gave was that a handwritten will, also known as a holographic will, may be valid. Well, it was close. It was close. Handwritten wills may be valid. Of course, they have to meet the requirements for a valid will, but a handwritten will isn't necessarily a holographic will. A holographic will is a will that is written entirely by hand by the testator, the person making the will, but it lacks the other formalities of a valid will. For example, in order to have a valid will, here in Georgia, it has to be witnessed and signed by 2 witnesses. Well, holographic wills are the types of wills that are written by hand, but they don't have those witnesses available. So a holographic will never be valid in Georgia because it's missing those formal requirements. And so it was very close in the answer. Handwritten wills may be valid under certain circumstances. In fact, we've helped many families probate handwritten wills. There's just nothing about it being written by hand that makes it invalid, but it has to meet all the other requirements of being a valid will. For example, the person who's writing the will has to be older than 14. And that is a very interesting age here in Georgia. I believe it's the lowest age in America as far as being able to write your own last will and testament. But there are other requirements that make a valid will here in Georgia, and one of them is needing witnesses, so holographic wills will never be valid. Handwritten wills, however, will be valid. And so it got it wrong in the fact that it described handwritten wills, also known as holographic wills. They're just basically different, so it was just wrong there. Very close, but wrong. Now, Another thing that it did, it was provided in order to be a valid will or a valid handwritten will, it gave two requirements. And the two requirements is that it must be handwritten and that it must have the signature of the testator, the person writing the will. Again, it was very close. There are other requirements in order to have a valid will, whether it's written or typed. But in this reference, it described handwritten wills, and it says, well, if it's handwritten, if it's a handwritten will and it's going to be valid, it has to be handwritten. Well, that makes a lot of sense, but you can also have typed wills here in Georgia. In fact, most wills are typed. But in order to be a handwritten will, I guess it's right. It has to be written by hand. The second thing it said was that it had to be signed by the person who is drafting the will or signing the will or executing the will. That's true. So it got that part right. In order to have a valid will, it needs to be signed by the person who is executing it. It doesn't have to necessarily be a signature. It could be an X, for example, if that's what the person normally signs their documents with. In fact, it doesn't even have to be signed by them. If they direct someone else to sign it on their behalf in the presence of everyone else, then they can do that as well. And you can imagine that's necessary for people who just maybe aren't able, because they have physical disabilities, to be able to sign a document. And so that's one of the reasons you can actually have someone else sign your will for you, but there's a lot of requirements around that. So those are the two things it says that you need in order to be a valid will. Well, it's just wrong there. There are other requirements. The person has to be of sound mind. They have to be over 14. The handwritten will has to be witnessed by two competent witnesses. And those are just some of the other things that a handwritten will needs in order to be valid. So it was very close there. And it ended the answer by giving another disclaimer saying, although it said, listen, make sure you see an attorney if you need legal advice, but it finished with something that was just very wrong. And the sentence that it started this last paragraph with is, it's important to note that while Georgia recognizes holographic wills, comma, blah, 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 it just gets that wrong. Georgia does not recognize holographic wills. What it should have said was that Georgia recognizes handwritten wills, and then it would have been right. In that case, it is just 100% wrong. With the other answers, it was so close, but right there, it was just entirely wrong. Georgia does not recognize holographic wills. And again, holographic wills are wills signed by the testator, but it lacks the other formalities of a valid will, like being witnessed and subscribed by two competent witnesses. So, to answer the question whether ChatGPT will be able to write a last will and testament for you, the answer is simply no. It is very close. And I have to tell you, I am very impressed with its answer, because quite frankly, many lawyers get this wrong when it comes to handwritten wills and holographic wills. They know that holographic wills are invalid, and they equate holographic wills with handwritten wills, but they are just two entirely different things. So I'm very impressed with its answer, because it's a question that even some lawyers get wrong. All right, so that's all we have to talk about today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, we put out new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and make sure that you hit the like button to the video. Again, every like helps, and have a good afternoon.